Welcome to AMI Connect 2022.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making the time to be with us today for AMI Connect. My name is Dave Brown. Some of you may know me as the host of Now with Dave Brown, which you can find weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on AMI TV. And I'll be your host and moderator for the course of the next 90 minutes or so. And I've been asked to describe myself to start things off, and we'll do that with a lot of our contributors today. So me, Dave Brown, big guy, white hair, broad shoulders, and a double chin that largely comes from my love of carbohydrates. I would also like to start off with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that AMI Connect event is taking place on traditional Indigenous territories across Canada, and we want to express gratitude to Mother Earth and for the resources that we are using, and honor all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on this land since time immemorial. A reminder, this event is going to be recorded and it's going to be available to watch at ami.ca, as well as the AMI TV app for Apple and Android, and on the AMI YouTube channel. So if you really enjoy what you see today, or maybe you have to skip out for whatever reason, there is going to be this content on demand available for you after the broadcast. And as you know, today's event is going to be focused on diversity, inclusion, and equity in media. We know it's important. It's something we talk about on our show and our network every single day, but is it really happening? And is it happening well? So it's my pleasure to kick things off by welcoming in an old friend and former colleague, Molly Burke, who joins us today from her home in Vancouver. And Molly's been a public speaker since the age of 5 and has shared her wisdom and personal experiences on some of the world's largest stages. Molly is no stranger to AMI. In fact, Molly and I used to co-host AMI This Week together. And please join me in welcoming Molly Burke. Hey, good morning, Molly. Great to chat with you once again.
It's so good to be here with you, Dave.
So Molly, we've been asked to sort of describe ourselves a little bit today before we jump into these conversations. So how would you describe yourself?
Yes, I love it. So I have my AMI green background. For those who don't know, the AMI color is green. So I picked my green background and I have my hair just down and straight. I have a pink lip on and I'm wearing a long sleeve white top with black moons on it.
Molly, you have had a pretty remarkable career to this point, but one of the spaces where you've really carved out a niche for yourself is on social media and YouTube. Take me back in time. Why did you want to start a YouTube channel?
You know, there's a lot of things that led me to starting a YouTube channel, but it goes all the way back to when I was 5 and started public speaking. The moment I stepped on stage for the first time, I was like, this is all I want to do with my life. I want to perform. And so I told my parents that I was going to be an actress. And at that time, of course, being a young 5-year-old, not knowing that I was going to lose the majority of my vision to RP, and not understanding how difficult an industry it is, period, for anybody to break into, I just had this big dream. And when I lost the majority of my vision at 14, I had all of these realizations that this was an industry that was not only not friendly to most people, but certainly to my community, the disabled community. I never saw myself represented in media. And I completely gave up on that dream. And somewhere along my journey to recovery, I pursued public speaking. And, you know, I thought back to what YouTube had done for me as a viewer in my time of need when I was depressed, struggling without friends. And I turned to girls on YouTube who talked about things that I loved, like makeup and fashion. And I was like, how can I kind of combine my passion for educating on disability and blindness and my story, mental health, bullying, all of these things I'm passionate about, my love of performing and media industry. And I thought YouTube is a space where I don't have to wait for the right audition or the right person in Hollywood to see me and recognize that I have potential. I can just carve out a space and build that community for myself. And, you know, hopefully build a community that's a safe space where everybody feels welcome.
Molly, you have a natural charisma. You're very captivating personality, no matter what method you're using, whether it be on stage as a public speaker, whether it be on your YouTube channel. But you mentioned that YouTube was something that you utilized as a place to talk about some of the things you went through. Is it difficult to be as vulnerable as you are on YouTube and really pulling back the curtain and letting people into your life?
First off, thank you, Dave. That was so kind. To be honest, I am a chronic oversharer. I always have been. Like, that's just who I am as a human. And I think it's part of what makes me perfect for doing what I do. I have always been the type of person who didn't understand why we as a society didn't share the hard stuff, because the hard stuff is sharing the hard stuff and having those hard conversations is what allows us to bridge the gaps in society. And so that was just kind of always my approach to life. Before I ever started on social media, I always shared very openly and honestly, and I always felt it was very important. I'm actually now at a point in my life where I'm trying to learn a better balance, because having millions of people peering into your everyday life is a lot to take on and can definitely wreak havoc on your mental health sometimes. So now I'm trying to find a bit more of a balance, but to be honest, I think the vulnerability and the honesty is what comes more naturally to me than actually holding stuff inside.
And Molly, unsurprisingly, I've already deviated off the path that we were supposed to be focusing on. So you actually mentioned your dreams and some of the auditions that you've been trying to be a part of over the years in your pursuit of that dream of being an actor. Can you walk me through some of the things that you've experienced in mainstream or linear traditional auditions over the course of the last decade or so?
Yeah, so previous to moving to Los Angeles, I did a few auditions, but most of my auditions were since moving to LA 4.5 years ago. And you know, being in Hollywood, the home of the entertainment industry, I've been lucky enough to get quite a few opportunities to audition. Of course, with the way the entertainment industry is, I am mainly asked to audition for disabled roles, specifically for those of blind females, which is frustrating because I know I'm capable of playing any role, not just that of a blind person, but of course the industry has obviously not quite caught up. That's why we're having this conversation today. In fact, in the US, only 3.1% of media represents disability at all. That's not just blindness, that's all of disability, including mental, physical, and addiction. So it's a very small group of opportunities that we even have to audition for. And it's been frustrating that I have on numerous occasions gotten down to that final round of auditions, gone through 3-4 rounds. I'm at the studio lot in Studio City, California, and I'm in front of the directors and the producers, and I'm right down to the finish line, and that role goes to a sighted girl. And it's extremely frustrating because I know that if I'm at that final round of auditions, this is not a question about whether I'm talented enough. This is a question about whether I'm capable because I'm disabled. And it is not me questioning whether I'm capable. It is the people in charge, the directors, the producers, the casting agents, questioning whether I, as a blind woman, would be capable of doing the job. And I find they often take the easier route, which is hiring an able-bodied person. Their comfort zone, being with other able-bodied people.
Molly, there's some layers to dissect in that answer, but one of the things you mentioned very early in that answer is that oftentimes perhaps casting agents or directors or producers or whomever see you as, oh, the perfect fit to play the blind girl or the character who's from the VI community. I'm curious if that ever feels at all like tokenism, or if you feel like you've experienced some tokenism over the years as you're walking through this process.
You know, although I find it frustrating that I'm not given as many opportunities to audition for able-bodied characters, I do understand it, and I am happy that they are at least trying to authentically seek out blind or disabled actors to play these roles, because we ultimately can bring more authenticity. We often aren't given any other opportunities. So with the few there is, it's nice that they are trying to give them to us. And I do feel like the media, as we all know, has so historically butchered the way they've portrayed us as a community, that it's nice to think they are trying to bring in people from the community to play the roles. But I have certainly experienced tokenism in other ways working in the entertainment industry. For example, my management team has been told things like, oh, well, like we can't pay Molly's rate because we pay disabled people less. That they literally said that. They said to my management, we pay disabled people less. And the irony in that is that they wanted me to promote how they, as a company, support blind people. And I was like, the irony is too real with this one. And that was like a large household name. Everybody would know this company. And another one where, again, a company that everybody will know. I won't name and shame, though I probably should, but I won't. But everybody would know this company. And they said to my management that they were doing a diversity campaign and they wanted to create these billboards with diverse women. And my management was like, oh, well, Molly's perfect for that. They had reached out for another one of his talent. And he was like, yeah, absolutely, she'd be interested. But one of my other talent, Molly, would also be perfect for this campaign. And so it was specifically diversity in beauty, women who love beauty. And that's a huge thing of mine. And they told my management, yeah, Molly would be great for this campaign. And, you know, we'd love to include her. But the only problem is if we put Molly on a billboard, nobody will know she's a minority. And AKA, we're only doing a diversity campaign and putting people on the billboard who look like minorities so that we publicly can get brownie points and look like an accepting and diverse company. And that's just like, they're just being so open with their tokenism at that point. And again, if you're not willing to pay the other company, if you're not willing to pay the worth of a disabled person to promote how good you are to disabled people, that's tokenism. You're trying to look publicly like you're good to disabled people, while actually in the background, not being good to disabled people by not paying them their worth and perpetuating this trope that we as disabled people should just be grateful to get a job.
Yeah, you just used the word grateful, and it's almost like you sat down in my brain and pulled that word, because when we're talking about that, some folks may find that to be horrifying, right? To say, well, we'll include you, we'll just pay you less than everybody else. And that speaks, it's even hard to almost frame the question, but what does that say to you about the way that people think about disability inclusion as a priority when it comes to their media campaigns? Like, oh, we're happy to give a little bit of a platform, but we'll give you the platform for a little bit less.
Exactly. And I think I've had such wonderful opportunities to work with amazing brands. And of course, right now I'm focusing on some of the negative experiences. I've also had incredible experiences that outweigh those. But I think at the end of the day, this discussion is talking about the pain points of the media industry as disabled people, which is why I want to focus on those challenges, because I think we as a society can learn from the challenges to improve. But I do feel like in general, society still, when trying to include disabled people, does it almost out of this feeling of need, like it's a necessity or there's a pressure on them to do so. And so when they begrudgingly give in and try to do so, they're doing it with the least amount of effort, the least amount of lift on their end, and putting the onus or the effort onto our community. It's about us needing to do the effort, because we're just lucky that they're giving us a chance. So like, we need to put in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Molly, before you made a comment about the way in which disability representation historically has been, I'll be generous and say subpar on screen in movies and television, in the way in which people with disabilities are portrayed, and specifically the concern around actors without disabilities portraying that disability. I wonder if I can get your reflection on where we stand in that conversation right now, and if perhaps we're starting to move in the right direction.
I think we're definitely starting to move in the right direction. A couple of years ago, media representation in the US for disabled people was under 2%, and we are now at 3.1. So although that is still a laughably small percent, given there's 1 billion disabled people in the world and 1 in 4 people in North America have a disability, I think it's still worth celebrating that we ultimately are moving in the right direction. That said, a Ruderman Foundation study done in 2018 found that only 56 disabled characters were being played by disabled actors. And that does include physical disability, mental disability, and addiction. And so given only 56 of those characters were actually authentically being played by the actors who lived those experiences, is frustrating. And I think it's very easy for people to say things like, well, maybe there was just no talented blind actor, or no talented actor in a wheelchair, or no talented deaf actor for that role. I'm sorry. Again, let's remember there's 1 billion disabled people in the world. So if we're going to try to, it's just once again putting the onus on us that we as a community are the problem, not the rest of society being discriminatory or ableist. And And so it's frustrating that so many of our roles are going to able-bodied actors, because as I stated earlier, we as disabled actors are virtually never considered for the roles of able-bodied characters. And so then we only have 3.1% of all media that we're even is it even available to us as a community to audition for? And so then when over 95%, that is an actual fact, over 95% of our roles are going to able-bodied actors, it's extremely frustrating because they have all of these jobs they can audition for. We have this very small group, and then they're still getting them. And again, with how many disabled people there are in the world, it is not about our talent. It is about people's ignorance, their fear, wanting to stay in their comfort zone, and so many more negative things. And so it's frustrating. I'm excited that we are moving in the correct direction. It's just obviously, I think we all wish it was moving a little bit faster than it is.
Yeah. Hey, Molly, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that in the upcoming episode of In Focus. And we're also going to talk about a couple of the solutions and a couple of proposals in our panel discussion a little bit later in this AMI Connect event. But Molly, as we're wrapping up with you, before we let you out of here, plug your stuff. Where can people find you? Where can people stay up to date with all the work you're doing? Because you're doing a lot of remarkable work.
Thank you. I'm on pretty much every social media platform at Molly Burke Official. The only one that's different is Twitter, because it wouldn't fit. So it's Molly, the letter B, Official. And my website is mollyburkeofficial.com. And yeah, that's pretty much everywhere that you can find me. I really appreciate being back with my AMI family. AMI gave me, a start in my career and believed in me. For 2 years, I was an AMI host for AMI This Week and AMI This Weekend. And it was such a great experience. I learned so much. And having AMI give me that opportunity meant so much to me starting out in my career, trying to venture into the entertainment industry. So it's so nice to be back here with all of you. Thank you so much. And actually, if anybody is interested in this topic, I am releasing a video more about it on my YouTube channel on Friday. So
very good. All right. A lot of these things connecting together. Yeah, Molly, it's a pleasure catching up again. It's been too long since we got to hang. I used to love recording ATW with you when I'd fill in for Anthony or vice versa. So all the best to you and keep up all the amazing work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. And I'm excited for the rest of the event. I hope everyone sticks around to enjoy.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, that's Molly Burke, social media influencer. She gave you her points of contact to track her down. Definitely want to make sure you're following along with some of the work that Molly's doing. So now we turn our attention to not the main event today. There's no specific main event. Everybody's pulling at the strings tonight to make sure this event works. But let's turn our attention to AMI's latest original series. Because you're here today, you're getting a look before anybody else at this new series called In Focus. You're getting that sneak peek of the very first episode entitled Disability Representation in Film, TV, and on Stage. This premieres tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on AMI TV. Let's roll the tape.
It's so important that we have that representation behind and in front of the camera.
I always say representation matters. It's entirely important to see someone that looks like you to help give you inspiration to follow your dream.
We have the same rights to participate in this theater world like anyone else. We just need the accommodation.
We're ready for our close-up, and it's time that we are integrated and that we tell our own stories.
Today, we're talking about disability representation in film, TV, and on stage.
Deep conversations, real honest stories, and complex, relevant issues all examined through a disability lens. This is In Focus.
Hello, I'm April Hubbard. Joining me today through Zoom is Maysoon Zayid and Prince M. Ponza. Maysoon Zayid is an actress, writer, comedian, and disability advocate who lives in New Jersey. Prince N. Ponza is an actor in film, TV, and on stage. He became a double amputee after a fire in 2012 and lives in Toronto. Maysoon and Prince, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, April. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hello, April.
Prince, you've said that while you were recovering from the fire, you couldn't imagine returning to acting because you didn't see that there was a place for you there. Why is it so important to see someone like us on stage and on screen?
Yeah, well, I always say representation matters. It's entirely important to see someone that looks like you to help give you inspiration to follow your dream. And I think about also when it comes to disabled actors, it's really lacking in representation in TV and all sorts of media. And so as a kid with a disability, I can imagine it would be difficult to imagine yourself in that place or in a position like that when you can't see that on the screen. And, you know, we're surrounded by it in everyday life. So for it to not be on screen, it always boggles my mind.
It really does. Maysoon, I once saw an interview where you said that your disability has been the biggest hindrance in your career. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I chose the route of stand-up comedy as my way into Hollywood because it's much easier being disabled as a comic, getting in and breaking through than it is as an actor. Hollywood shuns disability. They exploit disability stories. They choose which stories we're able to tell. You know, I really believe in the idea of casting disabled actors in roles that weren't written as disabled. When I finally got cast on General Hospital, the character that I play, who is a lawyer, we have never discussed her disability. She just happens to have CP because I do, and there's no way getting around that. And I want to see more of that. The reason that I think representation matters is, first of all, we make stories more interesting. The real life experiences and like the diversity of having disability characters that show that we're not a monolith, that intersects with every other race, age, economic class. We bring so much to the stories. We add so much flavor. The talent exists. We're not asking for charity. We're ready for our close-up, and it's time that we are integrated and that we tell our own stories.
Yes, there are so many talented disabled actors waiting to have a voice.
For me, I just recently was on a project on HBO Max called Station 11. In that role, it was also nice to not have disability be the thing that defined the character, right? Because, you know, you come as a person first and then you deal with your disabilities, also secondary. But, you know, the disability doesn't define the person. So it's always nice to have that. It's really refreshing.
Maysoon, you've talked about the absurdity of not being cast as a girl with cerebral palsy when you were in college. What did it feel like to be told that you couldn't play yourself?
That was like the awakening to, ooh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it would be. And 20 years later in my career, I'm still interacting with like 28 to 34-year-old cisgendered, able-bodied white people who are gatekeepers, who I, as a disabled person, have to sit there and educate them on like the basics of disability 101, instead of just like pitching my project and being creative and being taken for my talents. I have to sit there and be like, well, it's a neurological disorder. And well, there's no shame in wheelchair use, that you can be ambulatory and use a wheelchair. I think they know how to not be offensive to your face when it comes to race and gender. And when it comes to disability, I was pitching a show and I had a network say, we love Maysoon and we love the show, but we already have a Down syndrome pageant show and they're just too similar.
Because we can only have one.
There was literally no similarity, not age-wise, not content, not format, but it's like, there can only be one disabled person. There can be one Black friend. There can be one woman on every comedy show.
We deserve so much better. Recent studies have shown an increase in disability representation on screen, but many of these disabled characters are still being played by able-bodied actors. I'm going to ask the controversial question, is it ever okay for an able-bodied actor to play a disabled character? I'll go to Maysoon first.
Because you saw I almost jumped out of my seat. It's not a controversial question. It's never, ever okay for a non-disabled actor to play visibly disabled on screen. I say visible because invisible is a separate category. It's a whole conversation, but visible disability, much like race, can't be played. So what I say to people is what they think are great portrayals by non-disabled people of disability are actually inauthentic, cartoonish, and harmful. Two, like as an actor, why do you want to spend like 3/4 of your acting brain trying to imitate how my lip shakes, making everybody uncomfortable because anyone like attempting to imitate my Gumby mouth would look like they were mocking me. The joke that I say on stage is if a wheelchair user can't play Beyonce, then Beyonce can't play a wheelchair user and she can slay anything, just not that. And when people say to me, well, it's acting, I always say Denzel Washington is one of the greatest actors who ever existed, and he is not playing Hillary Clinton in a biopic. So it's not just acting.
I totally 100% agree with you. But I mean, it is lovely Oscar bait to be able to play that disabled actor, right? It seems like everyone who did it at some point got an Oscar. It was like a guaranteed thing. And it wouldn't matter so much if there wasn't such a lack of representation, right? We wouldn't be having these questions if we were able to have just as many people that are disabled on the screen. But unfortunately, these roles are being taken away from folks like us, and that's what's so detrimental. I'm sure people are a lot more hesitant now, actors are a lot more hesitant now to take on those type of roles because we've just had enough of this, right? And it's because we're voicing our opinions and voicing our frustration about this, which is great.
And just to mention some statistics, in 2021, the most recent GLAD study showed that just over 3% of series regulars are characters with disabilities. But they're still being played by able-bodied actors more than 95% of the time. So we still have a long way to go.
Terrible. That's terrible. But we are shaming them. Prince is right. We're shutting down movies before they even open. The Backlash at Me Before You and, the movie with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston, we're shutting movies down. So even though Hollywood is very slow on the uptake, they're starting to really be effective movements in the disability community where we shut you down on your opening weekend and you never recover.
So what can we as disabled performers do to reach the point where we're able to speak for ourselves and to have our voice heard?
Yeah, it's all about advocacy, right? It's all about being able to stand up for ourselves, but also feeling like we have a voice in the room. So it's always important for me to feel like I can speak for my rights and for whatever I need, and to feel that we can speak up, to have that comfort and that safety is what's very important and vital.
I just want to also comment on something Prince said. If you are a disabled person who does have opportunity, insist on having other disabled people around you. So like, for example, I'm doing a docuseries right now that I'm hosting. And I was like, oh, I'm hosting a docuseries. Okay, I want to have 3 other disabled women of diverse disabilities and ethnicities surrounding me so that we're like The View after a really bad accident. And I could do that because I was the host, I was the power, I was the executive producer. When I sign contracts, I insist that 20% of crew is always disabled. My writer's room is 100% disabled people because I have the ability to make those decisions. Adam Sandler told me the greatest thing, that's my big piece of advice for disabled actors and performers and creatives. Stop worrying about being high maintenance. A lot of times we think if we ask for accommodations, we're high maintenance. And I remember saying to Adam that I was afraid of being high maintenance. And he said, Mariah Carey's in that trailer. And so your average Joe in Hollywood is a lot more high maintenance than any disabled actor that's like, hey, I need a quiet room or a ramp or a second translator.
I'm glad you brought that high maintenance thing up because when I first got back into acting after my accident, I was always so afraid to say any accommodations that I needed, but in fear of losing the gig or thinking, he's too much trouble or too much money or not worth it to deal with all this. And it was only over time, over the years that I've been able to get to a position of comfort and to say, this is what I need to be able to get this job done. And they're always open to it, right? When you bring it up. But there's such a fear to bring it up in the room, because as an actor, you just want to be able to get the job and don't want to do anything to screw it up. But as a disabled actor, yeah, like you say, it's very important to speak up.
I had so much fun speaking with you both, but I think we're out of time. Maysoon, Prince, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, April. It's been such a pleasure having these deep and very important conversations. Thank you.
Coming up, partially sighted, deaf, and hearing artists create a unique theater experience.
Everybody is extremely positive and happy and excited about this experiment.
In Focus will be right back. You're watching In Focus.
Our next story is about an innovative theater collaboration in Halifax.
So what we're going to do is start from the top of the show and work through again.
Ben Stone, co-artistic director of Zupa Theatre, is rehearsing with a small group of deaf, partially sighted, and hearing performers for his latest production, At This Hour, set in the aftermath of the 1917 Halifax explosion.
So it's not a play, it's more of a documentary, a live documentary. And so the actors, the performers, are historians or documentarians, and they're explaining the legal process that happened after the explosion.
The explosion caused more people to lose their vision than any event in Canadian history and contributed to the founding of the CNIB. At This Hour was developed in partnership with the CNIB.
So the blind version of the show was created as a sound-based, audio-based performance. Sort of like a live podcast that has sort of surround sound aspects to it.
Philippa Coleman is a CNIB client and a co-creator, writer, and performer for the production.
It's been a challenge occasionally because in some ways theater is a very visual thing, so it's kind of been a learning experience for everybody involved. Like, they've been very good at accommodating and figuring out, like, how can we do this?
Hey, so when the ship is coming towards you, if you pass, you want to the left. Same as cars, keep to the right.
Another collaboration for the production is with The Signs of the Maritimes, a deaf theater troupe. Jim McDermott is one of the troupe's founders and a deaf performer in At This Hour. The voice you will hear is that of an ASL interpreter.
For us as deaf actors, using Maritime Sign Language, which is also known as MSL, is an essential part of this process. There may be people who've never seen certain signs that are MSL, especially those from Western Canada. It's important that we showcase those signs that are unique to the deaf community from the East Coast.
During the performance, deaf and hearing cast members are paired off and positioned side by side. Each pair performs their parts simultaneously.
Initially, I was quite nervous thinking about how we, the deaf actors, were going to work collaboratively with other actors who are not deaf, especially when we need to say our lines simultaneously. The hearing actors, when they saw a sign, were enamored with how expressive sign language is. They were inspired by what we were doing. We then realized the audience would also be impacted much more because of how expressive the deaf actors are when using sign language, with our facial expressions and movements. It was a great collaboration overall.
Nova Scotia, Canada.
It's been wonderful because we have this amazing consultant, Catherine McKenna, who's come and really gave us insight on how to work collaboratively together and to make things more visual and to create more awareness around the signs that are being used. It's been amazing.
Thurga Kanarasakalam Pillai, another deaf performer in the production, is from Toronto. Thurga spoke to us through an ASL interpreter.
We have, the same rights to participate in this theater world like anyone else. We just need the accommodation. If we don't get those accommodations, then it's not going to work.
In dress rehearsal at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic's small craft gallery where the play is being staged, Ben is looking forward to opening night.
Everybody is extremely positive and happy and excited about this experiment.
We must work with such confident authority.
Philippa hopes the audience gains a new perspective from the experience.
In terms of disability and in terms of advocacy, I think they can take away that something can be developed for different disabilities, and it doesn't have to feel like something that is tacked on.
And Jim hopes the audience takes away not only some new knowledge about the history of the explosion, but a fresh appreciation for deaf actors.
And I hope that, the audience, specifically the hearing audience, sees not only how we translate the script, but also how we translate the sounds that are a part of the performance. Because there is music involved in there, and it would be, I hope that they walk away having that visual impact of how we incorporated those sounds into our language and into our movements so that it makes it more accessible for all.
Coming up, a talent casting agency exclusively for people with disabilities.
There's this huge untapped pool of talent that is just not utilized, who deserve to be hired.
In Focus will be right back. Welcome back to In Focus.
Keely Cat-Wells is an entrepreneur and disability activist originally from London, England. An actor and dancer in her youth, she became disabled at the age of 17. After moving to Los Angeles and losing an acting job due to ableism, she founded C Talent, an award-winning talent management company, in 2018. She joins me today from Los Angeles. Keely, welcome to In Focus.
Thank you so much for having me.
C Talent represents high-profile deaf and disabled artists, athletes, and influencers from around the world. What challenges do your clients face in getting hired?
There's still so many physical barriers to entry. I mean, our clients have frequently come back to us and said, we had a fantastic time on set. It was a really good job. Everything was great, except I didn't have an accessible trailer and I had to get my makeup done in the car park, or had to get changed in a storage room, or, these constant struggles of facing these accessibility barriers. And then the other thing I would say is the stigma and the stereotypes that we still constantly face. And I think that stems from the lack of inclusion of disabled people in behind the camera, in those roles behind the camera, in executive positions, in those creative positions, in the writers' rooms. So we've got a long way to go, but I would say those two are the biggest barriers right now.
Is that why C Talent provides disability consulting to productions?
We help with language and scripts and advise on casting and also on-set accessibility and locations going beyond compliance, trainings, audits, all of those kind of things to make the workplace a more accessible and favorable place for everyone, not just disabled people, but for everyone.
Why is it important to have disability representation both in front of and behind the camera?
It's so important that we have that representation behind and in front of the camera. It's taking that opportunity of disability inclusion and diversity with integrity. And there's so much talent. There's this huge untapped pool of talent that is just not utilized, who deserve to be hired, who should be hired, and can provide so much value to these companies.
What advice would you give to an emerging deaf or disabled artist starting a career in the entertainment industry?
Find your community and create content. I think, as we've seen with social media, if you are a director, a producer, writer, an actor, you have everything you need with your iPhone and with your community and your friends to create content that can be seen. So I would certainly say that. And then the other thing I would say is just don't give up.
Thank you, Keely, for joining me today and sharing your vision behind C Talent.
Thank you so much for having me and for all that you are doing as well. Thank you.
When it comes to disability representation in film, TV, and on stage, it's true we still have a long way to go. But as our guests have shared today, change is happening. Thanks to their efforts and the efforts of many more creators and artists with disabilities, what we see on screen, on stage, and behind the scenes is the beginning of meaningful transformation. That's it for In Focus this week. If you'd like to weigh in or have an issue you'd like us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at feedback@ami.ca. Thanks for joining us.
Host April Hubbard, producer Wendy Purvis, videographer editor Andrew Pickup, reporter Jillian Gillis, narrator Grant Hardy, media accessibility specialist M. Williams, audio post Mark Phoenix, graphics Mike Smith, opening theme package composed by Matthew Monius for Matt Mac Music, senior producer Michelle Dudas, President and CEO David Arrington, copyright 2022 Accessible Media Incorporated.
So there you go, guys. That's the debut.
Welcome to AMI Connect.
Just to make sure you guys knew where you were. Yes, indeed. You are still at AMI Connect. And there you go, guys. That was the debut episode of In Focus. Hope you enjoyed it. They do a really nice job of laying out the groundwork on some of the issues that are pressing in regards to representation in TV, film, and more broadly in the entertainment industry. A really nice job there. Big shout out to April Hubbard as well as the Halifax production team who were putting that one together. So now we get to move on to the panel side of this conversation. As the show did such a nice job of laying things out, we can start delving a little bit deeper and talking about a couple of solution ideas here. So as we start introducing the panel, you guys can feel free to start throwing on your cameras and opening up your microphones. So we've got a community here, members representing the disability community. And we'll begin with someone who is very familiar to AMI listeners. It's Kelly Mcdonald. He's the host of Kelly Mcdonald. Kelly Mcdonald is the host of Kelly and Company, which you can find weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time on AMI Audio. You can also download the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. Hey, good morning, Kelly. Well, good morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, good morning is such an instinct because I'm a morning show host.
Good day, Dave. Good day to everybody. Thank you. Wonderful. It's been wonderful to sit back and enjoy, and looking forward to the conversation with the great guests that we have.
Hey, Kelly, we're just asking everybody today as they're popping their camera on to give a brief description of themselves. So how would you describe yourself?
I'm a big guy. I have on today a navy blue shirt, my trademark fedora that everybody always hears me comment about. I've got a black one on today, and settling back here with the AMI Connect background behind me.
Kelly, I don't think I've ever seen you without the fedora. So yeah, it's good to know you're keeping the gimmick going, man. Got to keep that gimmick alive. I believe we have Bruce Cook available with us as well, the host of the AMI original series, Hook or by Cook, which of course the new season is happening, launching on June the 16th at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Do we have Bruce down the pipeline?
I'm here, if you can hear me.
We got you loud and clear there, Bruce. So Bruce, we're just asking everybody to give a brief description of themselves.
Yeah, so I am a 34-year-old white male wearing a green sweater and a black backwards hat, as I do 98% of my life. And I've got the AMI Connect background as well.
Styling and profiling with Bruce Cook. We love it. Hey, and a voice that you guys just heard and saw in that episode of In Focus is Maysoon Zayid, a comedian and actress who we just met right now. Hey, Maysoon, thank you for making time to be part of the panel. And I wonder if you can give a bit of a description of yourself as well.
Sure, yeah. I look like the Lost Kardashian. I'm a cinnamon-skinned Arab woman with inappropriately sparkly lipstick for my age, long black hair, and I'm sitting in front of an evil eye because some of you people are jealous and I don't feel like being cursed today.
Always got to be careful with the Malocchio hanging out. Let's jump over to introducing as well Michelle Asgarali, who's a producer and writer for AMI's new original series, Breaking Character. That show can be found Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on AMI TV. Hello, Michelle, and would you mind giving a description of yourself as well?
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having us all here. I am, I like to say, a brown gal with a gap-toothed smile. I have a little bit of a Katniss Everdeen braid going on. And luckily enough, the AMI backdrop has blurred out my power chair altogether. So all you see is me, which is kind of fun. Yeah, that's me. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. So guys, I know there's probably a lot of thoughts about this more generally, and this conversation could go in a million directions, but I want everybody, including those of you out in the audience today, to consider one question as we begin this conversation. And this is going to be layered into almost everything else we discuss. But to your mind—
And that question is, are cats better than dogs? That's what we'll be discussing today.
Oh man, you'll start a battle. Wow.
Yeah, this is not the best spot because Kelly's going to put his anti-dog position out there.
That's like the cane versus the dog. Come on now.
All right, guys. So the big broad question that I want everybody to be considering is, what does a more inclusive and representative entertainment industry look like? Now, that question is way too broad to pose out just as is, but I want that to kind of bubble at the surface for you guys as you contemplate all these questions. And Michelle, I actually want to start with you, because sometimes it's easy to focus on the top end of the industry, the really marquee positions. But in your mind, what needs to be done at the grassroots, whether that be community theaters, film schools, theater schools, other professional programs? How would you like those kinds of institutions to offer up the skills and training opportunities to get people started on the right pathway?
Yeah, I think I want to start off with the fact that it's usually one of the biggest hurdles that you hear from the industry saying, like, oh, well, I don't know if they're trained. Like, I don't know if there's any training out there. How do I find someone who actually knows what they're doing? So the importance of that is key to start in schools and to start in those training programs. And the biggest thing really starts with the mindset. I think everywhere we go, we think of the barriers being the physical barriers that are stopping us from doing it. But once people actually think of accessibility at the beginning of the process, those barriers disappear a lot faster. So having schools, having programs, having community outreach happen at an early stage of thinking, how are we going to reach different communities? How do we accommodate like simple things of the way that they're approaching really changes the way it happens. Without it, those barriers are more difficult to break through because it's harder to talk about if people are not even thinking about it in the first place. That's your number one, I think.
Yeah, in the long run, that could save some time, the tireless advocacy that goes on in trying to explain to people what needs to be done in regards to accommodation. Whereas if you start teaching people at the grassroots and at the beginning, that's going to ease the pathway. It's not going to solve the pathway, but it's going to ease the pathway a little bit. Hey, Maysoon, I want to give you a similar opportunity to answer a question like that in regards to making sure when we're giving young aspiring artists those opportunities to be trained in places that are barrier-free, and how that may offer more opportunities down the line. How would you like to see those kinds of institutions approach this?
It's interesting because I have like 7 different jobs, and one of them is that I teach at Princeton. And I think it's very important for theater programs, dance programs, art programs, music programs to be inclusive, and they just don't tend to be at all, even though, you know, I'm not in Canada and south of the border in a much less civilized place called America. Theater programs, art programs are not accessible, but that's not where I really need to see the change. Where I really need to see the change is in streaming television and network television sets. We really need to have a push so that they will hire disabled people to work behind the scenes in the writer's room. If there's a disabled character, there should be a disabled writer. Like just a couple of years ago, we had a show which was so great called Speechless. And when I was like, hey, who's the disabled writer? They were like, no one. So I really want to make sure that when disabled stories are being told in the media, whether it's a news story or a fiction story, that we have disabled writers and voices and researchers telling those stories. And then, you know, as I said in the episode, I think it's really important for non-disabled actors to reject roles that are visibly disabled. I think us telling them stop doing it, it's offensive, it's cartoonish, it's harmful, is not getting it done. But if actors are very vocal about the fact that they will not take these roles, that it's not okay to do it, and kind of shame others who do, into stopping the practice of having non-disabled people play disabled on screen and then be miraculously healed on the red carpet, I think we could get somewhere.
Yeah, if somebody wants to call themselves an ally, they need to truly be an ally and do that next step, as you identify right there, and making sure that people with disabilities are being included. And you also talked about the idea of building that critical mass on set, whether it be behind the camera or in front of the camera, to create a more streamlined or smooth ideology that doesn't always require the same level of explanation. And that's where I keep coming back to this idea of the training grounds, whether it be community theaters or film schools, to ensure that you're getting people trained across the industry with that knowledge, and making sure that people with disabilities are also being nurtured and growing those skills in those places. Bruce, I want to offer you a chance in on this one as well. What do you think could be done at the grassroots level to make sure that people early in their careers are getting the repetition and training they need to do that eventual act of breaking through?
I'm going to go a bit different on this one, and more of a physical thing for me. I've noticed is just with doing some speaking things at different venues, is just the literally physical ramps to get up on the stages. And even before that, awards shows and all these things, like the representation for disability is just not there. I don't know if you're very young and you see these award shows and all these people just walking up onto stage, that kind of subconsciously puts it into your mind that you need to walk up on the stage to be able to accept this award or whatever it is. So I would say, out of the whatever dozen places that I've been to, and to go up on stage, give a speech, whatever it is, a play, maybe one of those had a ramp, and it was something that they had to put in. So it's and these are communities, small communities. So maybe get rid of the stairs, just use a ramp, because everyone can get up a ramp as opposed to stairs. And that's kind of my take on the very first step is being able to physically get out there to perform whatever your art is.
Kelly, I want to come to you now, because you have a lot of experience at the community theater level. In fact, I would say that probably is what aids you with your bombastic personality that you share on the air every single day. But I'm curious what you think institutions like community theaters or acting schools or theater schools could do to ensure that people are getting those opportunities to refine their skill set.
Dave, every day it's a show, man. That's what I treat it as. Kelly and Company, just act 1, 2 o'clock. Dave, I've been giving this some thought. And one of the things that I found really is we're always going to, as disabled people, have to kind of push our head forward, have to make sure people know we're there. I liken a lot of it to back in the 60s, when Black people were getting certain types of parts and other minorities. When in the 70s, I'd watch TV, and if there was a character where somebody was from Japan, it was always the same actor, which made me feel, even as a kid, man, there must be only 2 or 3 Hollywood actors that are from Japan or from Asia. And I found that very intriguing as I saw the same representation in other communities. I feel the disability community has kind of, well, we are in that position, just years behind and working our way very slowly. We're the ones that have to educate. I love the idea of disabled people being there in the writers' rooms, in working on productions, giving ideas behind the scenes, and hopefully getting opportunities on screen. My theater troupe that I run here in London, when we started out, we understood that there were not low vision blind people wanting to act, wanting to do things behind the scenes. We opened the door, gave that opportunity. But the key thing for us, because we didn't exactly have a formula of what we were doing, so we called upon other people in the theater community to do workshops with us. And that allowed us to be visible. It allowed them to see us around. So if anyone showed up at any of their auditions, there wasn't this, what? Blind person, oh my good, really? Hey, you come in here, look, there's a blind person here, or a disabled person in here, what's going on? We try to make it a normal thing, as well as recognizing individually our own limitations. And that's not just based on vision, or if you had a wheelchair, whatever it might be. We really wanted to make sure we were known. And I think that's the way as the community has to do, that we're out here. We have to be vocal. We can't figure, oh, well, you know, I mean, we know finding us, we're always going to hear, well, we didn't find an appropriate, you know, disabled person to take that role. Well, yeah, but we're trying to edge slowly along, getting experience, so we're taken more serious. So I think, Dave, on that level, going back to community theater, that's for me where I saw it starting. And I know we got to a point where we were very welcomed. We would go see other people's shows because it was the same thing the able-bodied people were doing, supporting each other, and we were right in there, and there wasn't a reason to hesitate because we are around. And as Bruce said about access, yeah, even the conversations were happening about making the theater spaces more accessible.
Maysoon, I want to, yeah, please
go ahead. No,
well,
you go ahead.
No, you've got a response. You've got a response. Go. Don't even let me.
I
Don't
just
even let
wanted
me
to
frame
also
it.
piggyback what Bruce said and say the default has to be that you're going to need the access. Like, as
That's
someone
right.
who, I'm a stand-up comic and I tour theaters and colleges, and people always say things like, well, we asked to see how many people there were and no one responded. And I think we need to understand this conversation on the level of, you need the space to be accessible to anyone who decides to come at any time. And they don't need to reveal their disability status. We need to create spaces that are as close to universally accessible as possible, while acknowledging that some accessibility things make it harder for other disabled people. So it is like a fun balance to walk. Also in the chat, they asked about representation of invisible disabilities. I talk about representation of visible disabilities because I feel that, like, physically visible disability can't be played. That, like, if someone tried to imitate my mouth, you'd be uncomfortable. I do think that invisible disabilities should also include invisible disability representation. I think those parts should be definitely written by people who have lived that experience. But I'm not ready to fight the invisible on screen fight yet. I'm gonna leave that to the people who want to do that because I'm barely getting anywhere with the visible one. So we'll see.
But there should be the expectation, you're right.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Maysoon, I want to stay with you just for one more moment here, though, because I wanted to come to you also in responses to Bruce's question or comment or thought, because you've spent time on studio lots. You've spent time on these sound stages. What are some either positive or negative experiences you've had in those spaces?
I have found that people are 100% willing to accommodate me if I tell them exactly what to do and I give them some advance notice. And I know that that's not always possible. Like, sometimes you're on set when you discover what you need, but instead of being angry about the fact that it's not accessible, it's not where it needs to be, I'm very much solution driven, where I'll go to the person I need to go to and say, this is what we need. And they tend to never say no. They want to actually accommodate. They want me to be comfortable. They want me to work at my best level. So that fear that I had for asking for accommodations when I was young, I don't have anymore. But I also have like 7 agents behind me. And I'm not going to pretend that it's easy for an extra on set to be like, hey, by the way, I can't stand. But I feel like instead of trying to pass, instead of struggling and not doing your best work, be really, really open about it. Ask for what you need and do your own damage control ahead of time. Call ahead. Are there ramps? I can't carry things. Can I get a PA or an intern to help me? You know, just be really deliberate and clear about the things that you need and be vocal about it. And you'll be surprised by how many people do want to help.
I do want, go ahead, please, Michelle.
I just wanted to add that for those people who are afraid to do that, on the opposite side of things, if productions at any stance, like theater, film, TV, anything that you have, if you have an accessibility coordinator, which is a new person, there's this new role of understanding that you need someone to be able to facilitate that, the one that understands some of the logistics of what that may mean, and have a safe space for that person to be able to come and say what they need, is also very helpful. It's also, I mean, after COVID, we've had COVID lenders and extra people there. We've had intimacy coordinators for actors now that is almost like a mandatory thing if there's anything to do with love scenes, let's call it that. It's a standard. Like that is something that you would get as an actor. That is someone that would be there and be able to help you. You have a stunt coordinator, you have somebody there. So having an accessibility coordinator within a group helps smooth that pathway to be able to say what you need and to get what you need and to have answers, you know, for the other side.
Michelle, that's such a good point to think about someone who can be a point person on this. We know at the end of the TV show or the end of the movie, when the credits are rolling, there's endless numbers of people who are contributing to that effort. Michelle, is there any sense of how common that accessibility coordinator is becoming with major productions?
It's getting bigger. I think it's more, I mean, I think Maysoon can maybe speak to it more on Hollywood side. Hollywood.
I'm definitely hearing about it, and seeing people offer it without me even asking. Yeah. But I'm sure that there are sets where it would need to be asked for. But I have heard about it in the past 3 years, and like you said, COVID kind of pushed it towards us, so that helped a lot.
I think you're seeing that a lot too because of the mental health of everyone and just how stressed out and how that really impacts the functioning on camera, off camera, behind, because stress has just nailed everyone.
Absolutely. And the other point I wanted to, just add into Bruce's point on ramps and how it helps everybody. There's a story of a stunt coordinator that uses a wheelchair and required 2 ramps to get to set. It ended up saving 2 hours of production time for everybody else, because now you could load all the gear onto the set without carrying everything on. You know, just those 2 things, although it's universal. Accessibility is universal. It's not just for an individual.
Funny how it happens that way.
Yeah, it's one of the drinking games that can be played with on my daily show is when I use the word holistic, and there's certainly a holistic element when we talk about that kind of universal design and how that actually streamlines the production across the set, which is really, really cool. Hey guys, I want to talk a bit more.
Why is it always guys? You are way too tied to gender, my friend.
Apologies.
Hey Crips, hey disco, hey disabled people. Hey stars, divas.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, disco. Hey disco, because disability community, the initials are disco, and they call us the disco because we're the party.
I love it. It's my new term now forever.
I'm going to add that to my list. So let's jump over to a little bit more on the representation conversation here in storytelling, because the theme that was explored in the episode is that disability is being a bit more woven into the fabric of a show without being a centralized story. But to your mind, is there still a place to tell honest stories about the disability experience and how you would frame that? And Bruce, I'm going to start with you on this one. But is there still a place for those stories to be told, and how would we frame them if we are going to tell them as a more centralized part of the plot?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just making it authentic. And I have obviously started to notice more recently when there's a person with disabilities just in the story, whether it's just a brother, a sister, or anyone that just is in the show or the movie and happens to have a disability. And I think that's really cool. But I find myself waiting for the spotlight to be on them and to kind of highlight their disability. And I'm almost glad when it doesn't, so that they're just part of the show. But if it is, if the disability is part of the show, I think that it's just very organic and using their language and obviously to a certain extent, don't want to be offensive, but yeah, I think just bringing awareness to disability organically is the biggest thing. And I think that takes consultants and, like Maysoon said, the writers that have the same or similar disabilities so that they can speak to it on a very organic level.
Kelly, what do you think? Where is the place to still tell a centralized disability story inside the fabric of film and TV and theater?
I like it anywhere. Anywhere if someone's got a story to tell, they want to tell it, whether it's a stage function, whether it's within a TV show, an episode, because I also stop and think that I enjoy my stories of anything that maybe I don't have life experience with. Do I assume everything told in that story is true? We see a lot of police stuff. You talk to any policeman, well, that's not really the way it happens, right? They'll be quick to tell you that. But on the other hand, there are sometimes it's pretty bang on. And we've seen that with disability portrayals. Hopefully, as we've talked about, and we will continue and want and demand for more representation from those in the community. I don't think someone has to tell a story where the disabled character is a nice person either. We want to play parts, whether it's brought out within the storyline, it has something to do with it, or that's just who we are. We want the same credible parts that people have had. As a Black guy, I would play the criminal. I'd also play the hero. I wouldn't stop in my world to say, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't perpetuate that thought of, oh, of course, he's a car thief, he's a Black man. I wouldn't want or want to be so consumed and thinking that's going to happen. I can't stop people from thinking some of the things that, let's be fair, they know better. And that to me, still, disability is out there and people can simply ask questions or remain ignorant about it.
And I don't think it's an either or at all. It's every facet, right?
That's
so
right.
One of the shows that I'm developing, a docu-series, is completely disabled centric, 100% disabled talent on screen, because stuff like that still doesn't exist. But I think when we're saying that we want to normalize images of disability, it's so that disabled actors can audition for the best friend, the love interest, the teacher, the principal, whatever role, and be considered even if that role is not explicitly written as disabled. So it's not that we can't center disability or focus on disability, it's we want to be in both of those worlds. And then when we do focus on disability, what we've seen for decades is either heal me, you can't love me because I'm disabled, or we're better off dead. And we want to see stories, about disabled comedians, travelers, like I said, love interests, pirates, whatever it is that is on the gamut, we can play it all. So it's not either or, it's just, we've had enough of the inspiration porn and it's time to move on.
The reflection of us in the world.
I think we can all agree there's been enough inspiration porn, but Maysoon, I do want to come back to you here though, because is there still a place for that story? And I'm using the word as a person with a disability, so I've got some lenience on this. Is there still room to tell that story of the struggle? I asked this question because I know someone who right now is going through the experience of an acquired disability, and she is authentically struggling.
Yes, and I think that authentically telling our story acknowledges the struggle. If you're telling a story about being disabled, it's like the only real disability is bad attitude. That's what I'm talking about, inspiration porn. When I'm writing stories where the central character has cerebral palsy, there's a lot of times that the pain wins. There's a lot of times that they're frustrated, rejected, misunderstood, get into trouble. We're not saying that we can't tell real stories. We're saying that the only stories being told about us are not being told by us, and we want to tell our own story. So trust me, if you want to struggle, there's a channel in America called Lifetime. You can make people cry for 31 days straight. They will clap for you as long as there's a Christmas reference. There's always a place for drama. There's always a place for comedy. There's always a place for reality. There's always a place for sex. There's a place for all of it, and we're part of each of those groups.
Michelle, what do you think? Where can telling that centralized story about disability still fit in if we are trying to move a little bit more to the interwoven fabric of disability being included in shows?
I think everyone's been highlighting it. It needs to be everywhere. Like the point of being, the problem is usually it's one character, right? We're talking about one person, so you're now looking at that one person must represent every single disabled experience ever, which does not exist. There's so many different tales of experience and as well as levels of acceptance in your own experience of it. I think, as we were saying, inspiration porn, I don't know if everybody in the audience understands the concept, but think of it as where a lot of competition shows love to use inspiration porn. You have the
inspiration porn is basically when they show disabled people to a non-disabled audience so that the non-disabled people feel better about themselves and better about disability. So like when you talk about the struggle, you don't see that. What you see is the kid winning the race, the kid baking the cake, the person standing up and saluting the pledge from a wheelchair. It's inspiring, it makes everybody feel better, and it's not real.
Yeah, it's either it's both not real, and it also focuses on the result, not the process, right? Yeah. Like that's what Paralympic athletes will always tell you, that too often the result, the medal or the competition itself is what's celebrated, as opposed to the hard work that got the individual to get there. Sorry, Michelle, we interrupted you there because we got caught in the world of definitions, but I like that you're a pure broadcaster at heart, because you're like, we need to define the term. Someone may not know what the term is. That was well done.
And that's why, you know, when we're telling their stories and then you hear comments of, oh, it's inspiring, I like to correct and say it's empowering. Yes, maybe it's aspirational because that's where we want to be, but maybe not inspiring. The other part of it is you're talking about two different audiences. You're talking about, you know, I want to see disabled stories. I want to see how people are doing different things, just to learn. I'm like, oh, I can adapt that way, or oh, maybe I can go in that space, or I can be in that space. But you're also looking at a different audience of, you know, people who have not experienced disability. So it's always a hard balance of trying to maintain both. But and you're never going to get everybody to be happy. So as Kelly had said, you know, like you have to just tell the stories. If you're worried too much about what everybody is going to think, the best part of it is you get a conversation out of it. And if you can take that positive out, then it's great. I think you have that ability to do more.
We started this conversation with Molly Burke, who's really carved out a presence for herself in the digital space. And we know that digital production and distribution really has opened the door for more independent production. The digital side of the industry can also be quite profitable. So there certainly are opportunities there. But Kelly, how do we balance the value of that digital space with the platform offered by more linear mass media? Is there a concern that disability experience or that representation may be continuing to be confined to a more, quote, I'm throwing the air quotes on this, alternative space?
I hope not. I want to say it's a place for people to jump in, to do different things that they want to do, for us to discover someone who it really intrigues us for the reasons that whatever it might be, whatever they're doing, whatever they're about, we find interesting. And I'm hoping, as we've seen with people in performance, that levitates them to something else more mainstream. I love it it's like going through and seeing different people audition, and we all have, hey, I like that. It, like the old days of music when you went around to radio station to radio station, you play my record, and if it took, it became popular. It hit the top 40. And I'd like to say that if people have maybe they're a spoken word artist, storyteller, a singer, they get an opportunity and people start discovering them, things can go right around. It could be a wonderful vehicle, just like when you see people talking on Twitter and sharing some of their life experiences. You know, you may say, geez, I never thought of, I didn't know that. Whereas they may not ever be in a situation to ask Dave Brown, well, Dave, how do you do this when you're on the air? Or Dave, but if you go on Twitter and just happen to say, you know, I was on air today, people learn, oh, I got it, without feeling cornered into either I should know or I'm not comfortable to ask. They get to consume stuff and we get awareness. So I want to say, no, I don't think we'd be stuck out there, but I still think the same battle of having that accessibility be an afterthought, because not an afterthought, not as big a thought because it's just worked into everything already.
Yeah, for all the slings and arrows the digital space takes, it does offer some democratization, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, what do you make of that, about maybe trying to balance that? Hey, this is a great jumping off platform. It's a great place for distribution, but maybe some folks are going to say, well, they've got that digital space over there, that they're happy over there in that alternative format.
Yeah, I think it's just that they both need to exist and they both need to complement each other. I know myself, well, by hook or by crook, the show that I guess you could call host is about me. So my show and social media are similar. But I think that's cool. It's really cool for people being able to connect. You know, that what you watch on TV isn't necessarily real life. So I think with social media and YouTube and that, you get a much more personal look and you can ask those direct questions. And it's not just this far-fetched, far away thing that you might see on mainstream media. But on the other hand, I think it's very important to continue and progress and keep having more people with disabilities represented in the mainstream media, and not just kind of push it off to the side and say, this spot is for you. You can go to YouTube. You can make money on these things. So stick with that.
Yeah. I know it's self-evident, right? But platform matters, right? A national network is much different than a cable station deep down the dial or a YouTube channel as well. Platform is something just that, in terms of a network, just goes into people's homes. It goes right into their eyes or into their ears. Maysoon, I heard you agree with me. In fact, we were on the same wavelength in regards to the word alternative. I'm curious what you think. And I know you guys probably think I keep forcing you into these binary questions. I don't mean to. But where do you think the balance can be struck between the digital and the linear?
Well, I think that, first of all, digital opens the opportunity for people who couldn't access auditions to audition, to get themselves on tape and to show people that they have a following. You know, if you are doing comedy or dance or singing and you have millions and millions of people watching those videos, you reaching out to a casting director is totally different than just sending them a headshot and being like, take a chance on me. So it gives the disabled community an opportunity to build that platform, but it oozes privilege, right? We don't all have great cameras. We can't all have the internet capability that it takes to upload a 3-minute or 5-minute video or even a 15-second clip to Instagram. So, you know, disabled poverty is a real thing globally. And when we talk about the accessibility, we have to also acknowledge the inaccessibility to a large portion of our community. But I want to talk about alternative, quote unquote. Yeah, I want to do network. I definitely do. I want the Netflix 1-hour special, even though their stocks have crashed and burned. I still want it. It's like the comedian goal.
Stop sharing.
Don't forget that, like, that horrifically awful, devilish man, Joe Rogan, has a huge following. Not on a mainstream platform. Like, it became mainstream, but it didn't start off as mainstream. So if you're alternative, you could end up mainstream pretty quickly. It's not, again, a one or another, but I don't think that they're going to relegate us to the internet. I think the internet gives us the power to show that the disability community has the buying power of China, like $8 trillion, that disability stories are interesting to people who are non-disabled, that like love and family and fighting, reality and all that stuff is really accessible to a wider audience. And by having the opportunity to create and post our own stuff instead of trying to pass through gatekeepers who fear or loathe disability, it gives us an opportunity we've never had in the past.
Yeah, it's a couple things, right? It's reps. It's just literally getting repetitions to do the work and show the work and show your work, which is wicked. And it also allows you to lead by example, to say, we have these practices on my channel or my subscriptions place or my podcast to share these ideas. Michelle, I want to give you the last word on this one. Where do we balance the need and positive of the digital distribution, but make sure that doesn't stop the push for like the linear, the network, the major cable channels, etc.?
I think that the mainstream media has started to waken up. So I feel like this conversation of worrying that it's going to be segregated will not happen. hopefully, if we keep pushing. But the online world, as explained, it's the Wild West. It's our exploration, right? Like it's our ability to explore, just like independent film was. Just how, you know, it's the beginning of where everyone gets to try out what they want to do, and start building that following that resource. The challenge, of course, is, and scary thing of the interweb, is that as we have that ability to connect, being able to turn off, right? Like how when our ability to be invisible for a little while and not have that need to continue to engage, and explain everything all the time as yourself. Whereas your mainstream, you get to, you know, plug in, do your thing, tell your story, and then step back and do another project and be something else again. So as long as we have the ability to explore and change online, I think we have, there's a huge platform for so many different people. And the other big part of it is you're worldwide, right? Like we get to hear stories from other countries, not just within your tiny community or you're within your own country itself. So,
and it's so unpredictable. You don't know out there, whereas mainstream has to know, okay, what's going to sell and what isn't, because there's lots of money out there. You don't know you're going to hit today. You could just put off a video that you think is your worst video and go viral.
There's less fear. Basically, it's less fear on the internet.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. The stakes are high, but the fear can be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Discos. We are out of time. We are out of landing strip here. But I want to do the same thing I did with Molly on the way out, just to give you guys a chance to plug where people can find you, whether it be on social or some of the work that you're doing. So Michelle, where can people find some of the stuff that you're working on?
So our show, Breaking Character, our episode 2, is airing tonight on AMI TV. You can find us online at breakingcharacter.tv or on all the socials at Breaking Doc TV, like DOC, Breaking Doc TV. And that's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Very good. Maysoon, you mentioned you have about 7 different jobs. I don't know if we can plug them all here, but where can people follow along?
All in one convenient viewing location. You just go to Maysoon.com, like the month of May is coming soon. Actually, we're in it, but Maysoon.com. You can see my Instagram. You can see Beyonce the cat. You can watch clips. You can email me, and my assistant will let me know if you're worth responding to. If you go to Princeton, you can take my class Mondays, 1:30 or 4:30 in the fall. And I have a Scholastic comic book coming out called Shiny Misfits. Central character is disabled. She's not alone. There are other disabled characters. So look out for Shiny Misfits. And please use the hashtag disco and the disco ball. For so many people, wheelchairs didn't feel inclusive. The disco ball is many different facets all together to sparkle and shine and possibly give our epileptic friends seizures.
Well, we have to. That's a good warning to give our friends in that community a bit of a warning. Hey, Bruce, where can people follow along with your adventures?
Yeah. So first of all, season 2 of By Hook or By Cook is airing on AMI starting in June. I believe it's June 16th. And then me personally, all social platforms is just Bruce Cook FMX, which stands for Freestyle Motocross, which is my where I came from. So just Bruce Cook FMX, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those.
And Kelly McDonald, not on the show today, letting Ramya run free, but where can folks follow along with the work that you're doing?
Well, actually, I'll go over there now. I might as well go in and help her out, right?
I'm sure she'll be delighted by that.
Yeah. Kelly and Company weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio, also available as a podcast from your favorite podcatcher. I am available on Twitter at AMI Audio. Of course, our show is a variety show of entertainment, health, lifestyle, everything we can squeeze into it. And we have a really good time. So hopefully you'll come out there again. That's on AMI Audio and available via podcast, if that's a better way. And it's been great to talk. I thank everybody too, Dave. This has been fun and brought back old times of being on Blindsided over on AMI TV.
Yeah.
Think, boy.
There you go. There's the plug we can go get. I don't know if that's still available at ami.ca, but we're always encouraging
probably
folks.
on the web somewhere.
Somewhere on the web. Somewhere on the web. Hey, a big thank you to our panelists of Discos. Well done, gang. That's a big thanks to Kelly and Bruce and Maysoon and Michelle, and a huge shout out to Molly, who joined us off the top of the show. Congratulations again to the InFocus team. Now, you saw the sneak peek, but come on, make sure you're tuning in tomorrow night on AMI TV for the premiere episode to enjoy it all over again, Thursday, May 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on AMI TV. And of course, it will be available to stream at ami.ca, as well as the AMI TV app for Apple and Android. Also, make sure you're following AMI on your social media channels for Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff to make sure you're staying up to date with what's going on. In fact, if you follow at AMI Audio on Twitter, you can answer our daily poll on my show, which is Wicked, 9 a.m. Eastern Time on AMI Audio and AMI TV. And don't forget, if you really enjoyed this conversation and you want to share it with some friends or somebody else in the industry, this is going to be made available on YouTube as well as the websites and social channels moving forward as the day gets going. So keep that in mind, keep an eye out for that, and share. Sharing is caring with your friends. I'm Dave Brown. We are all set with this event here. Thank you for making the time to join us for In Focus. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Now, I did want to mention as well, I know a lot of you jumped into the chat, unfortunately, with your moderator being legally blind. Following along with your questions in real time was going to be a little bit tough, but what I'd love for you guys to do, if you take the time after this, after we end this broadcast, make sure to send us emails to our company feedback lines, feedback@ami.ca, feedback@ami.ca, or if you prefer the phone, 1-866-509-4545, 1-866-509-4545. Hope you all enjoyed this. Please feel free to share it with your friends, and we'll talk to you again down the pipeline. I'm Dave Brown, signing off for all my friends, my disco friends. We'll talk to you guys on the flip side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Thanks to the interpreters.